CJ Gardner-Johnson, new Texans safety, was on the Pivot podcast, and it's a really good interview. I had a hard time selecting which clips I wanted to go with, so I grabbed a few of my favorite, and I'm going to keep this centered around three themes. Basically, CJ Gardner-Johnson and why perhaps was he a little bit confused or out of sorts? Why wasn't he at OTAs? All of that. I thought he did a good job of explaining what he was going through at that point. Two, why has CJ Gardner-Johnson been traded so many times? And what were the issues necessarily? And then three, where is he now as a player and maybe in defiance of some of the narratives around him? To start it off on one of the really positive notes, the best place to start this story is at the end. We're going to treat this like a Hollywood movie. At the very end of the interview, he was chopping it up with Fred Taylor. And just to give you a little dose of how he feels about the Texans now, he mentioned a few players and how he feels about them.
I'll be honest with you.
You know what I'm saying?
Is
nice.
No, he's phenomenal.
I just trained him this weekend.
I talked to him. I don't know how you didn't have 12 plus picks last year.
Wow.
He dropped four.
All right, this is Petrie.
He can go too.
You know what's so crazy? I see him being like a linebacker because, like,
That's what he do. He play
man,
Sam.
the way he run the gap.
And what's the
He
other
basically
guy
played Sam because he played nickel.
that knocked Trevor head off? Azim.
Oh, he a monster.
Azim.
Florida kid. Hey, I love him.
And that's why your coach,
He a
the real
killer.
one. Yeah, your coach, he gonna rock with y'all.
Fred. D'Amico is a real one. And the fit with D'Amico, I think, is a big part, and we'll get into this as we talk about the progression and the maturation process of CJ Gardner-Johnson. I did think he's on the same page as a lot of us have been over the last couple of years where, hey, maybe Jalen Petrie would be better off being a little bit of a nickel backer, more like what he did in college than as a true safety. 100%, that's what he did. It also shows you that CJ Gardner-Johnson is still learning the Texans defense. Ryan Clark knows it pretty damn well, though. And Kalen Bullock, very bullish about where he is in his career. I think with CJ Gardner-Johnson, he's one of these guys that it's when watching from afar, you just know that there's always some kind of drama, or there's frequently some kind of drama, either with him and Darius Slay a while back, or him and perhaps coaches not getting along. I think the big thing I took from this interview is that CJ Gardner-Johnson has acknowledged that there's some things he had to learn about the league and he had to grow up with. But in terms of the trade itself, remember he was here for a few days and he did an interview with Aaron Wilson where he gave an answer about why he needed to leave for a little bit that didn't quite sound right. This makes a lot more sense when you consider how he was processing the trade emotionally, and after he had really laid his roots down in Philadelphia and really wanted to make a go of it there. This is CJ explaining why he couldn't get excited about the trade initially.
Put like that, I was still holding on to the memory I was making. I was trying to make history in Philly. Like, I done moved, my kids was moving to school. I'm like, okay, I was really trying to not get traded again or moved again to change the narrative. Like, the conversations we was having, that's why I was hurt.
The conversations they were having, I think, in terms of them liking him, recognizing he'd made some changes. This is the really hard part, and this is a really hard time whenever you try to make some kind of a change in your life, is that you make these changes and yet people still remember the old stuff, and they don't know quite for sure whether they should believe it or not. You think about any difficult relationship you've ever had, you gotta keep putting deposits in the relationship bank for people to feel really solid about it. When it came to the Eagles, look, they had to pay Saquon. They had to pay these guys on defense. They're going to have to pay Jalen Carter, and they've spent really aggressively. And I know the Eagles basically said, like, well, it was a cap casualty. And CJ said, no, that's BS. Both things can be true. When you're having to make these hard salary cap decisions, then there's going to be tiebreakers, and there's going to be some guys you want to keep and some guys you can't keep. And CJ Gardner-Johnson has had a track record of being traded for multiple different reasons or an accumulation of things. But, and we'll keep going on this. Like, I came away from the interview with a very positive feeling about CJ Gardner-Johnson. The full interview is in the description below. But when it comes to when he got to Houston and how he was processing the trade, Ryan Clark asked him, how come you couldn't really just be in the moment and enjoy the fact that you're going to a team that's on the rise, a playoff team, a bunch of young players, and all of that. Here we go. I'm still learning this new system, so here we go.
I'm happy, but I'm like, damn, I got to start all over again with a group of guys who got a narrative of, and I just won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So I'm like, damn, I'm battling now. Like, okay, do I go quiet? Do I don't show up? Do I send a text to Stingley like, yo, bro, like, I don't know who to text. I don't know who to call on this team. I don't even. D'Amico say, welcome to Houston. I say, D'Amico, bro, I'm shook right now. I had to tell him. And he knew what it felt like being traded. And he was like, take your time. I went and signed. I was like, just don't post me signing. I was broke.
What hurt you so much about it?
I built my home there.
He wanted to be in Philly. He just won a Super Bowl with Philly. It would suck, man. If you put yourself in that situation, it would suck. And there's reasons for it. And I don't think Philly did him wrong or anything like that. CJ Gardner-Johnson talks multiple times in this interview about how it was hard for him to process. He's made his peace with it. He's going to go to the ring ceremony, and he comes off very self-aware. There's times where when he's describing various interpersonal issues he may have had in the past, where I feel like I take his explanation for it with a grain of salt, but the overarching theme is that he understands that he can't be 100% CJ Gardner-Johnson all the time, both on the field and perhaps in certain situations. There's times where you just got to breathe a little bit. He literally says, I just got to take a deep breath and take this all in. King Colby made a good point about Joe Mixon. I don't know if I can show these on the screen or not. This is still learning. There we go. Joe Mixon was the same way. He'll warm up to us. He has been. He's been on Twitch every night bragging about the Texans. Yeah, that process is 100% complete, I think. I think he's excited about where he is now, and I think he is evidenced by what he said at the very beginning. Really excited about all that. The two things I think, if I could identify, some of the various drama that's gotten him sideways with teams before. There's like various different stories. The one with Darius Slay, whatever conflict they had, that's been out there. He had a pretty good explanation for how all that went down. That's one thing, and I think he's 27 years old. As you get to the age of 26 or 27 in the NFL, that's basically middle-aged. And some guys make a transition and become different guys. And we've got so many examples of guys like, Travis Kelce, ironically enough, a guy who's battled with CJ Gardner-Johnson, both on social media, or at least the Swifties have battled with CJ Gardner-Johnson, and on the field. He had different types of issues, Travis Kelce did, but guys mature and they get to a certain spot where they kind of get it, and they also need to find the right culture. That's why I like so much what he said about the way CJ handled it. As far as coaches and why coaches might not appreciate CJ Gardner-Johnson all the time, I think CJ goes 1,000 miles per hour in practice all the time. And if you can imagine him being in Detroit, where they are very, very physical, and they practice with Oklahoma drills, as I think he references here. He'll F up a drill. Coaches don't like it when a player Fs up a drill, especially a combined practice. Whereas CJ Gardner-Johnson has almost made a trademark of effing up combined practices with other teams. Here's CJ Gardner-Johnson talking about that.
Giants came up there for joint practice. They knew what time it was. They coach said, yeah, we can't. Y'all defense, CD's going crazy. Jamal Agnew, Jacksonville come up there, live practice. For Philly's old coach, he was at Jacksonville.
Peterson.
Doug Peterson.
Doug say, we're going to go live. I hit Lil Agnew. He fumble helmet come off. They stopped joint practice. This is true statement. Dan said we're going to have a live 1v1s in Detroit. Gibby get his issue, but it wasn't on. I hit Jahmyr Gibbs in practice. Coach Shep get me. Everybody going
Yeah.
They going crazy because in Detroit we do Oklahoma drills, so you know how it is up in Detroit, man.
Yeah.
They knew what time it was.
I think he says they didn't know what time. He's saying they didn't know what time it was just yet. This is going to be fun. This is going to be fun because if you go, okay, Detroit is Detroit. Philadelphia has an offensive-minded coach in Sirianni, but he's kind of a lunatic himself. And you've got Vic Fangio, who I think very much appreciated and used C.J. Gardner-Johnson really well. But I don't know if he jives as much. I played for Vic, and Vic doesn't have necessarily the same way about him as a DeMeco Ryans or a Matt Burke when it comes to relating to players. Like DeMeco, I think, can relate to just about anybody on a team and can find a way to get simpatico with him. Vic, I'm not so sure, and I don't know if there are any issues between them or not. But when an offensive-minded coach has a defensive player effing up his drills, either because he tells a story about the Eagles as well, that I don't know. Sometimes they don't appreciate that as much. The environment in Houston is a lot more laid back, just while still working really, really hard because of the attitude of the head coach. And I think in Philadelphia, for instance, look, man, it works for them, but man, it seems tense up there. And it works for them. I'm not criticizing the Eagles whatsoever. Sometimes it's just about finding the right fit. And one of our listeners from Sports Radio 610, I was having a conversation with him once. He was an Army Ranger. I told this story this morning. But we were talking about how, man, you could be a great soldier in one unit and everything is just the right fit. You go to another unit that's well run, but the culture is just a little bit different, and it's not a perfect fit. There's just some guys fit with some units better than others. And I think there's a really good chance that through the combination of C.J. Gardner-Johnson kind of having matured over the last few years, but then also being on a team where, look, we almost look at it as a point of pride that we have at least one defensive player per year in a DeMeco Ryans defense get suspended for unnecessary roughness. I like that. The one in terms of him maturing, if you take it from where he was as a rookie to where he is now, he told a really good story about, I believe it was his first offseason in the NFL, and just how unprepared he really was mentally and in terms of expectations to be a complete NFL player at that point.
I went broke, boy. I went crazy broke. Trying to feed mom, make sure dad stays straight. And I'm like, I wasn't ready to do all that stuff because I wasn't putting myself in position to be ready for it. I was just seeing things and just going off of what I saw. Hearing how the NFL is supposed to be and how we going off what I heard. So I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't actually sitting back and analyzing my actions and asking questions. I had great vets. I wouldn't even ask them a question.
Good. That one hit just because I know DeMeco is very big on having the rookies, hey, ask questions, be vocal in a good way, just soak it all in, use the veterans. And C.J. Gardner-Johnson now has been on both sides of that spectrum, where he is now a veteran player. So that part of it, and I think he was in the full interview is really good. He was really open about, I think, when he was young, he had this vision of what an NFL player or a crazy hard-hitting defensive back was supposed to be like. And you guys can probably relate to this in life. So much of your time as a man in the young 20s is learning like what real life is like versus the movie version. And like, okay, all right. Maybe my ideas about how I'm supposed to act as either a football player, a stockbroker, just a police detective, whatever it might be. You realize, there's Hollywood, and then there's the real life. There's the part that's glorified, and then there's the really grunt work part of it. It's a learning and it's a growth process, and just kind of figuring out who you are and how you need to be. I'll get to some of your more comments here in a little bit. So this is the part when it comes to where is he now. Remember this year, he got thrown out of the Commanders game and because he had two unsportsmanlikes. And they were both of the jawing at people varieties. He got into a scuffle with one of the Commanders receivers. I can't remember who it was at this point. And then later on, one of the Eagles players had a huge hit. I believe it was Zach Bond. And C.J. Gardner-Johnson was jawing with either the officials or one of the other opponents. He got another flag. So with the rules the way they are today, second unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, he got thrown out. It was interesting because I think even in that season alone where if you go to the Super Bowl, remember the play in the Super Bowl where Travis Kelce got hit and then got up and did that Travis Kelce thing where he's trying to bait people and he goes right at C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson's got his hands behind his back and he's just kind of probably giving him kind of a smug look, but nothing he's going to get fined for. That's a very telling moment given what some of C.J. Gardner-Johnson's issues have been in the past. And I loved this answer to a question that Ryan Clark had asked him about what is his mindset going into the Super Bowl or big games in general.
Do you turn up the energy so the rest of your team
I calm down.
follows that?
I calm down.
Really?
You can ask the film team. This third quarter, 6 minutes left. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Because I know if I get out my body or get too up, we get out of control. It's been the biggest games we done played, and I can't do what I do. I can't do what I do. Super Bowl, I was fine being the safety valve and understand just don't let the ball go over our head. I don't care about no tackle right now. I don't care about knocking somebody head. That's not my job right now. Like, I calm down.
That's growth right there. Understanding to subjugate yourself in that moment for the good of the team. What's good for the team. The way I want to play, or I can't be me. It reminds me of the scene in The Big Lebowski when the dude is telling John Goodman that just sometimes you're a little bit much, man. I can't remember what the exact line was, but just sometimes John Goodman's just gotta shut up about Vietnam for a minute, okay? It's just not everything has to be a big deal. I think C.J. Gardner-Johnson has made that leap in his development, and he can now he can hug it out with the dude after they accidentally scatter Steve Buscemi's ashes all over them. So I'm excited about it, man. I think 90%, that's where C.J. Gardner-Johnson needs to hover. 90% C.J. Gardner-Johnson. You got to be really careful giving him the full 100% C.J. Gardner-Johnson. But if we think about the Stefon Diggs scenario, look, it was 1 year on a 1 year deal, effectively a 1 year deal. And we saw the very best version of Stefon Diggs. But a lot of people were very skeptical of just, hey, what's it going to be like? Oh, is he going to be a distraction? Oh, no. It was the exact opposite. And I think DeMeco's created an environment where you can get the best out of guys like that. And he's on a defense full of guys that are kind of wired the same way. I mean, Azeez, boy, I'd love to hear. I think Azeez Elshire and C.J. Gardner-Johnson can have some great conversations together because Azeez is really, really mature right up until he gets into a few specific moments in games where he steps over the line. And it's all about having a team full of guys who are habitual. You don't want them to be habitual line steppers, but you do want them to toe up to the line as much as possible. And I think they do have that. So I'm very optimistic about this. I'm not talking myself into it or anything. He's a ball hawk. That's a given. That's who he is as a football player. I think he is underrated. He's underrated enough that a lot of people really point him out as an underrated guy to the point where maybe now he's appropriately rated. If everybody's saying you're underrated, then it sounds like you're getting a lot of respect from people. It's just a matter of the actual fit. Yeah, as Brandon points out. How do I add these? Okay, maybe DeMeco thought if GJ is here, people stop paying so much attention to Azeez. Either that or this is the feeling I had when I was going through kind of looking at, I've always wondered about C.J. Gardner-Johnson. All right, like, what's the big deal? Okay, he seems kind of fiery. And then you start digging into various different dramas here and there. They start off this episode by clarifying that he's definitely not put a hit out on Malik Neighbors. And I don't know. I didn't even know what the hell they were talking about. There's Darius. There's just always, it's too much to keep track of. There's too much. It's like politics today. Something happens in the news and immediately, oh, wait, but this side is saying it's fake news, but this side's also claiming it's fake news. And then I don't know. I don't even know what's going on. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to have fun with it, the same way we have fun with politics these days. The confidence I have in our two high shell defensive packages has skyrocketed. You know what, Zevo? Hearing Darius say that about the Super Bowl where he says, hey, that's not my job to come up and hit somebody right now. It's not my job to get tackles. It's my job to be a safety valve. That's music to my ears because that's one of the concerns about CJ Gardner-Johnson at times is he can be overly aggressive or he'll take chances. And the maturation of a safety. Remember, he's a guy who played cornerback, then had to learn how to play safety in the NFL. It's always about finding that right balance between aggression and conservatism. And sometimes remembering, oh yeah, they named the position safety. Does that mean something? I think it does. I think I'm supposed to make it safer for the defense. So when we're playing two high safeties, yes, let's be safe when we're playing safety. Sometimes you can be menacing, but sometimes you just need to be be safe. Teams playing the Texans will wake up the next day and know they played the Texans. Yeah, and that's exactly what DeMeco said he wanted back in the day. I think they're already there. It just might be a little bit more so this year. So please, subscribe before you go. Getting back into football season, I'm going to be trying to put out at least one YouTube live stream per day. And everybody have a great one.